What's up, Lost Boys? Here we are for another fantasy recap video. We're going to talk about week 13 results and do a quick preview for week 14. So let's get right into a crazy week we had. So we are coming to the finish line, boys. There's only two more regular season games left before we get to the playoffs. Things are super tight. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But let's talk about the games from this past week. We're going to start with our game of the week. It was Cass versus Ryan. Monster game. Cass has been sitting at first or second place pretty much the majority of the season. He's definitely the hottest team in the league right now. Ryan was also on fire. Ryan made it through the gauntlet of having injured players at the beginning of the year. He's made it up to the playoff spots, and he ran into the juggernaut Cass. He lost by almost 100 points, 99 points this week, which is absolutely insane. Cass smashed him. All of his boys did good. Jordan Love is coming on for the playoff push, which is huge for Cass. CeeDee Lamb's been a baller all freaking year. DK Metcalf. I mean, Cass won the game on Thursday Night Football with CeeDee Lamb and DK Metcalf. Everything else was just gravy on top. Ryan, on the other hand, he had a rough week. I mean, he got 0 points from Terry McLaurin for some reason. He got 0 points from Tank Dell, and even worse news for Ryan. Tank Dell's been maybe the pickup of the year. Broken fibula out for the year, so Ryan loses a huge chip there. He didn't have Jonathan Taylor. He's out again for another couple weeks. So Ryan was gaining some steam. Now some injuries are piling on. Kenny Pickett's out. His quarterbacks are bad. Ryan's in a rough spot right now. Cass crushes him this week. Next game we're going to look at was our other game of the week, which was Jace versus Tim. Tim fighting for a playoff spot was running up against the other juggernaut in our league, Jace, and takes him down. Tim with a monster upset over Jace. Jace still put up pretty good points, 138, but Tim beats him by 16. And Tim got a huge game from Brock Purdy, almost 30 points. Outdueled Jalen Hurts, outdueled Dak Prescott. Huge game from Michael Pittman, and everyone else kind of just tagged along. I mean, it was a big play in the Chargers D against Patriots, which was a great call by Tim. A.J. Brown did what he normally do with 100 yards and 8 receptions. His running backs didn't do much. Ramondre, Breece Hall, that's looking like the weak point. And Kelsey only got him 10, but he's going to be there the rest of the year. He's a big weapon. Jace, on the other hand, still put up a decent amount of points, just couldn't catch Tim. The big error for Jace, let's call it how it is, he would have won. He started Marquise Brown or Jalen Reed over Achane, and Achane got like 23 points. If he would have flipped one of those guys, he would have won, and that's even with his Dallas D getting him negative points. Marquise Brown got 0, so he had two positions combined for -1 points. It's tough to win. Jace falls to 8-5. Tim moves up to 7-6 and stays in that playoff hunt. Next game we're going to go is Josh and Cal. This one we don't have to spend much time on. Josh needed a victory. Cal's the worst team in the league. He got the victory. He wins by over 40 points. The big reason Josh needed the victory was this is the last week he's going without Justin Jefferson. He finally gets Justin Jefferson back after 8 weeks out. Hopefully that can be good for his playoff push. Cal, on the other hand, I mean, he's been the worst all year. He continues to be the worst. His team's just really bad. I was talking to Cal about this yesterday. I mean, he had his first 3 picks were Patrick Mahomes, Tony Pollard, Jalen Waddle. None of them have been hurt all year. So he's had all 3 of his first round picks healthy all year, which I think Cal may be the only person to be able to say that. And yet he's the last place team because they're the worst type of fantasy players. The guys that are drafted early and stay healthy, so you have to start them, and they just don't perform. I mean, Waddle was 7 points. Mahomes with a terrible year, 13 points. He's just been bad all year. And Tony Pollard finally doing a little bit, but he's never had a crazy good game. He gets them around 12 to 15 each week. So sorry, Cal. Josh takes the dub here. Next game, this one was much closer than I expected. Pat versus Denny. Pat takes the dub, and he needed this dub big time. It looked like he was clearly going to dominate this game early in the week, but Denny had some monster games. I mean, Deebo Samuel went off for almost 34. Chuba Hubbard, 22 points. Jamar Chase, 26. If you just say those 3 things for Denny's team, it's almost impossible to lose fantasy with scores like that from some of your players. I mean, if you get 34 points from a wide receiver, you are going to win 95% of your times. Unfortunately, this is one of those 5%, Denny. Baker Mayfield, 9. Desmond Ridder, 8. Defense -1. I mean, Cleveland got -1. Cleveland's one of the best defenses in the league, got him -1. So Denny's team, unfortunately, this is why he's 4-9. His team's just not deep. He doesn't have a very good roster. He got some big plays from his boys, but couldn't catch up to Pat. Pat, on the other hand, got a monster game from Geno on Thursday night. Got a great game from Trevor Lawrence. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence, so it looks like he has a really bad ankle sprain. This could be like a 2-week injury. This could be like a 4-week injury. So we'll see. It's not looking good for Pat. I don't know if Lawrence is going to play the rest of the regular season. They might just sit him for the playoffs. But they do need to bring him back because they have not clinched the playoff spot. They're only, I think, 1 game ahead in their own division. So they're going to try to get him back. So that might be good for Pat. But it's not looking good for the immediate future for Pat. Christian Kirk got hurt as well. So Pat's team, just like Ryan's team, both of them are fighting for playoff spots. Both of them are a little bit injured right now. So Pat takes the dub, though. Gets the dub, which he needed. He wins by 11 points. Keeps himself alive. Next game, speaking of needed to take a dub, Romanowski gets a monster win over Justin. Beats him by almost 50 points. Justin's team wasn't terrible this week. He just didn't really get much from a couple guys. Matt, on the other hand, he had the teens week. You know, every single guy on his team did pretty good. Scored him around in the teens. Sam Hell did good. Gardner Minshew. Mike Evans has just been Mike Evans like he is every year. 25 points. He gets his over 1,000 yards for the year. Puka Nacua finally showed up again. 21 points. Cooper Kupp got 13, so he's getting almost 40 from Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, which is what he needs to be a statement. Plus Kyron Williams got him 19. I mean, he started 3 Rams against the vaunted Cleveland Browns defense, and they got him almost 70 points. So that was Matt's week in a nutshell. Crushes Justin. He's starting to pick up steam. His team's looking pretty good going into the playoffs. He still won without a down year on Keenan Allen. Justin, on the other hand, his team's just not very good. He didn't have any depth. He still doesn't have any depth. And he had no Josh Allen this week, which is by far his best player. It wouldn't have mattered. He got 0 from his tight end. He got 1 from Tutu Atwell. You know, it's funny. He played against the Rams squad and Matt, and the only Ram that didn't do good was Tutu Atwell, who Justin played. So Justin gets smoked there. Matt moves to 7-6. Now, those are the matchups for this past week. We're going to talk about the standings real quick because that's the important thing. First, we got first place Cass at 9-4. Theoretically, mathematically, he hasn't clicked, but Cass is clinched. He is 2 games ahead of anyone that could catch him. Okay, but more importantly, he is points-wise like almost 200. He's about 150 points ahead of any of those people that could catch him. Josh, Learning Computer, Tim, those guys. He's way ahead in points. So Cass would have to lose 2 weeks in a row. Those people would have to win 2 weeks in a row. And they would have to outscore Cass by 75 points each week. That ain't happening, so we're going to congrats Cass on his playoff berth because he's pretty much clinched. Next, you have Jace at 2nd, Josh at 3rd, both at 8-5. Jace's loss this week to Tim was a big one because if he would have won, he would have been in the same spot as Cass. Now, Jace is by far the most point scorer in the league. I mean, he's up 200 points on anyone that can catch him. But because his loss against Jace, theoretically, Jace could lose the next 2 weeks and fall out of the playoff spot. It's very, very unlikely, but it could happen. Josh at 8-5, he's not as sitting as pretty as Jace with points. He's only 1 game ahead of the rest of the guys that are chasing him. Points-wise, he's ahead of a couple of them. He's behind one of them. So Josh may be in 3rd place, but he has to keep winning. Then we get into the super crazy part. We have not 1, we have not 2, not 3, but 4 guys all sitting at 7-6. I don't know if we've ever had this late in the season, that we have this many guys fighting for the playoff spot. I would just say we have 5 people right now fighting for 2 playoff spots, which is crazy to think. I would assume Jace is going to make it because of his points. So you have Josh, Matt, Tim, Ryan, Pat. 5 guys fighting for 2 playoff spots. Josh has the game lead on them, but that means nothing right now. Pat is sitting probably in a tough spot as well as because of his points. I mean, he's by far the lowest scoring team of all these guys. So he has to make up the games and he has to make up the points. But it could happen. I mean, Pat wins 2 and those other guys lose. He can easily make it in. Roman's sitting in a great spot. He may be one game behind Josh, but he has everyone beaten points by a pretty decent margin. He's at 1,900 points, so he's about 50 ahead of Josh and anyone else. So Roman, if he just wins, he's in. Ryan and Pat, though, as I mentioned before, they're dealing with injuries right now, which sucks for them. They have to win out, I think. And if they don't, it's going to be tough. And then Tim is the wild card right now. Tim got that huge victory against Jace this week. He's sitting at 7-6. He's right there with Josh in points. Tim, who is the ICU, the bye week, the worst, he's right there. He could do it. He could do it. And we look at the schedule for this week. You have Josh versus Denny, who's Denny's down at the bottom. Tim had to play Jace last week. Now he has to play Cass this week, the gauntlet. Those are the two hardest people to play, and he has to play them both. If he manages to beat Cass this week after beating Jace last week, ooh, Tim's in a good spot. He could get right in. Justin plays Ryan. We'll see what happens there. Justin's team's really bad, but Ryan's team's a little bit injured right now. Jace, he's pretty much already clinched. He's playing Cal this week, so that's a dub. But the game of the week, the hugest one, is Pat versus Matt. Both 7-6. Both teams have to win. Pat's team is a little banged up, and Matt's team is looking really good. So this is a huge game. You never know what can happen in fantasy. I think Matt's going to win this game when it comes to a prediction-wise, but who knows? Either way, it's a hell of a game. This is basically a playoff game. We are in the playoffs, and we still have 2 weeks left. So all these people need to win. If for some reason, if Pat loses to Matt and Tim loses to, if Pat loses to Matt and Tim loses to Cass, and somehow Justin beats Ryan, it's almost like the playoffs are set. If Josh finds a way to beat Denny, then that's the playoffs. But none of that stuff is guaranteed in fantasy. And because it's so close, I'm going to do for the first time this year, I'm going to look ahead to the final regular season week just to see how crazy this is. Josh plays Jace, huge game. Jace will have it clinched already, but Josh has a tough opponent to get into the playoffs. Tim gets to play against Justin. That's probably going to be a win. That's why him beating Cass this week is so important. Denny plays Matt. That's probably a win for Matt, so he has to get the victory over Pat this week. Cass is already in. He plays Cal. But then you have Llama versus Pat in the last week of the season, both of the injured teams. So one of those guys is guaranteed to lose. So it's just crazy stuff going on right now. Everyone fighting for 2 playoff spots. We'll see how it goes. And I didn't even mention the bottom 3 guys. Unfortunately, Justin, 5-8. Denny 4-9, and then Cal sitting in the turd fest at 3-10. All teams just haven't been able to do it. Cal's team's been awful this year. Denny's team had some ups and downs, but his depth is just really bad. The Jets being bad has killed him, and Justin's team has been really, really bad this year. You lose Burrow, and he didn't really have much depth before. So that's kind of the situation our league's in, boys. First time ever we have this competitive a league. It's awesome. You could theoretically be over 500 this year and maybe not make the playoffs, which has never happened before in our league. So super fun stuff, guys. Hope everyone's team stays healthy this week. Like I said, we got some monster matchups, some really interesting ones. The big one I'm really looking forward to seeing is Tim versus Cass. Tim versus Cass is huge. Cass's team's been on a roll, but he has Trey McBride on bye week. He's been money for him. Tim's team's at full strength. Tim's team's actually really good. So we'll see if Cass can beat Tim. If Tim can get the dub, he might be in. I mean, the thing I'm super excited about is the 3-team race of Matt has a really favorable schedule because Pat's team's injured. Josh plays Denny this week, but then has to play Jace next week. And then Tim has Cass, but then he gets, I think, a free win, a win next week against Denny or whoever one of those small teams is. So you could have theoretically Josh, Tim, and Matt all win out going forward. And who knows what the hell could happen. But one loss from any one of those teams could completely flip everything. So all 3 of those teams are fighting for 2 spots. All 3 of those teams need to win every single game, I think. So should be fun next 2 weeks, guys. Starts in 2 days on Thursday Night Football. Love you guys. Hope you guys have a good week. I'll see you then.